All right, guys, welcome to this week's episode of 40 Years and 40 Beers. As always, it's your host, Bob Bain and Joe Massi. This week's episode is all about Wu-Tang Ha! The Wu-Tang Clan.
Cuz got the Jizza shirt on.
Love it. I got
Wu-Tang.
my Imperial
All
Pizza
of the
shirt.
members.
Right,
that's the 1 year anniversary t-shirt.
That's this week's sponsor.
You wore that on the very first episode.
I did.
Yeah, so we're going to get into the group stuff, the solo stuff, but stick to the 90s. So believe it or not, they had a lot of activity between 93 when they came out and we'll say like Halloween of 99. Almost decade, extremely active. That's when you got introduced to the group and to every individual member via an album, except for one guy. He didn't drop his first album until 04. So we're going to talk about the songs. I have a couple other like gems and other things to talk about. So, where do you want to get started? I think
so. The best part about them is their origin is friggin' incredible. So, one, they were 8 people, right? The original. They were pretty much 8 individuals, right? 9. It was 9. Excuse me.
Yeah.
They were 9 individuals, right? Who came together independently before they were signed. So it wasn't like a label put them together, which is really, really unorthodox. If there's a group formed, typically in the hip hop game, the rap game, right? Excuse me. It's a label that puts that together.
That's a good point. I never thought about that before. Making the band, G Unit, D12, whatever it was. Yes, they were friends. I'm sure these people knew each other. You're not just going to throw a bone to anybody in the world. But the label had a hand in orchestrating the name, the album, and pretty much everything, even the logo probably. So for 1991, 1992, for 9 guys to come together from different cities, different zip codes in the area, some family, some not, and then present themselves as a team of 9.
Yep.
That was amazing to start off with.
Because you probably know way more than me. From what I understand about the origin of Wu-Tang was you had ODB, you had RZA and GZA, who were all cousins. Right? And RZA, GZA was already rapping before Wu-Tang Clan.
He's the oldest, yeah.
So GZA was already signed. He was rapping, right? He was the oldest.
Yeah.
And you had ODB, who was a family member, but he wasn't really, he didn't get involved with anything as far as being signed until he was actually with Wu-Tang when they got signed together. But then you had RZA, who was Prince Raheem. Was it Prince Raheem he was?
Prince Raheem.
Yeah.
And the GZA was the genius. So GZA and RZA both had albums before the group formed. Words from the Genius was 1991, GZA's first album. So then we know that shortly after that, that's when the group began to form. Late 92, early 93 is really when they made a commitment and then started recording their first songs together.
Now, what happened, though? So you had GZA, right, who had his first album, and then you had RZA, who was Robert Diggs, who was Prince Raheem, and they put out a single. I remember he was like in this friggin', he was like a top hat. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I have to find a video of it. I don't think they weren't together.
No, they were independent.
They were boys.
Yeah.
And they were in each other's video, but they were not a group at that point. They were 2 individual artists. Yeah.
Exactly. No, exactly.
Right. We Love You, Raheem was RZA's first single.
So from what I understand was, and correct me if I'm wrong, after that experience, right, where RZA was signed and they said, oh, you're going to be known as Prince Raheem, you're going to do this, we're going to control you. He got let go. He got dropped from his label. I forget what the label was, but he got dropped from his label.
It's Rakim with a K.
Rakim. Prince Rakim.
We're saying it wrong.
Yeah,
so
we're saying it wrong.
We Love You, Rakim was his first single on Tommy Boy.
We Love You, Rakim.
1991, same year as The Genius.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then he got dropped by Tommy Boy. So
right, because Wu was on Loud, correct.
And those experiences are what made him go home and realize, I'm going to make my own music.
And the first single, I don't know if it was Protect Your Neck or Cream, but
Protect Your Neck was their first single in 93. That was Wu-Tang's very first single that was on the radio.
So it wasn't just, I'm going to go home and do a better job. I'm going to go home and think of a more creative record. It was, I'm going to go home, get 8 other people, produce all of the album myself, and make the grimiest, grittiest stuff. The Protect Your Neck is the identical opposite of Ooh, We Love You, Rakim.
Well, absolutely. Now, how did that happen? So he comes home, right? Comes home, gets really dropped by Tommy Boy, and he goes, you know what? I'm going to be Raw. I'm going to be Staten Island, right? They're all from Staten
Yeah.
Island for the most part. I don't know if all 9 are from Staten Island, but I know the group originates out of Staten Island.
Yeah.
All right. We all know that. Anybody who's a hip hop fan, right? They actually ended up for their own group purposes. They renamed Staten Island Shaolin.
Yeah.
You know?
Park
So
Hill. Yeah.
you have RZA, GZA, ODB. Those are the original 3, right? Obviously, so they could all rap, they could all flow. So why wouldn't RZA go after his cousins first?
Yeah.
So who else was from? Were they all from Staten Island?
I don't think they were all originally from Staten Island, but whether it was school or moving to a divorced mother or parents' house or a grandmother or an aunt, they all ended up together eventually towards the end of elementary school, beginning of high school. And then they're young men at the point of forming the group, right? And they say like they form as Voltron, and RZA happens to be the head. So he just had the ability to make beats, right? Like the Hulu show is not accurate, but
Well,
you
is that
see,
true though? I don't mean to cut you off, but I think you'll like where I'm going with this. Was he really just the guy who made beats? Like, in my opinion, a guy who really just makes beats is more of an engineer, right? He's not really a producer. He's an engineer. Where,
uh,
I mean, dude, RZA understood how to create an album. He
yes.
wasn't just making beats. He was an executive producer. He
100%. Yeah,
like,
yeah. But the beats did get made by him though.
correct.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
he wasn't just like, oh, all right, here you go, here's your beat. And he wasn't Scott Storch.
Right. Yeah,
You know
he
what I'm
wasn't
saying?
just creating instrumentation that sounded good and then removing himself from the rest of the equation. That's 1,000%. The whole concept of the old kung fu movies and the Wu-Tang logo and the concept of 36 chambers and Shaolin, that was all him. That was all him.
Well, but it was also awesome the fact that they were all into it, right? So
Yeah, it
all
wasn't
of so
like,
RZA,
yeah.
GZA, they were RZA, GZA, ODB. They were already into that kung fu movie lifestyle, which
Well,
was
Bruce Lee was like Jimmy Hoffa back then to them guys. You know what I mean? Back then, like he
exactly.
was that popular, and the movies were playing in theaters at that time. So it was like, oh, they come together, they form a group, and I have to imagine even today, like I can't believe they're all still together. They put an album out in 2025.
I know. But
And
here's the other thing. Weren't they a lot of them because they were in the streets, right? They're from some of them are from housing projects, some of them aren't.
yeah,
All
Park
right.
Hill,
But yeah, Park Hill, exactly.
10305.
But some of them were rivals, right? Like before they formed the
I
group,
don't
didn't
know.
Ghostface and Raekwon hate each other?
That's what the Hulu has you believe. And there's multiple interviews with all 9 of the guys saying that the Hulu story is not true to form. And it's super dramatic and embellished for the sake of good television.
Okay,
But
'cause
they
I
don't
didn't
go
get
into
that from the
specifics.
Hulu. I thought, even growing up, I heard that they were ops or rivals before.
I never heard or knew that. And actually, they're the 2 tightest, right? Like Ray and Ghost. Ghostface is
I think
on.
Ghostface is probably, in my opinion, Ghostface might be the best rapper in the whole. Well, obviously Method Man. Sorry, but
Not best
besides Method Man,
lyricist. I think
Ghostface is number 2.
Ghost is 3, Deck is number 2. But yeah, what's the word I'm looking for? Like his energy, his personality, his persona, Ghost is at the top of the list. But lyricism, he's not number 1. But
I think
no,
when he
I'm
comes
saying,
out and protect your neck, he's like, my style is loud. He's like,
yeah, but no, but I'm saying like in the group, those 2 were the tightest. Ghost is on the Cuban Linx cover and Ray is on the Ironman cover. Like they were boys. They went back and forth a lot, like on records and.
but in the Hulu, you see they become boys, right? Like you see
And
that they
that's what I'm
become
saying
really
is
close. So I wonder if that's what really happened.
never heard or seen anything to that effect before Hulu. And no one has come out and said that specific thing was incorrect about the Hulu series. But just in general, they say the Hulu shit is super dramatic and embellished. But so we were, what, 6th grade in 93?
93 was
We graduated in 95.
95, 8th grade. So yeah,
From grade school,
93, I
eighth
was
grade.
11, so 6th grade, yeah.
Right. So it wasn't listening to it the minute it was released. I didn't know they existed until probably 96, 97.
I can't believe
When
you just
did you
said that.
hear?
Can't believe you just said that. So I definitely heard Wu-Tang Forever.
Because you had an older brother.
Oh, no. I listened to Wu-Tang Forever before I listened to the whole 36 Chambers
Yeah,
album.
right. Yes. So that was 97. So that's what I'm saying.
Which is crazy to me, but that's true. Let's be true.
I had heard 36 Chambers before I purchased Forever, but very close. It was like maybe like a year later. And that's what made it so cool.
I was listening to Dre. I was listening to Pac. I was listening to Snoop. Like, I wasn't listening to Wu-Tang. I just wasn't.
Yeah, right.
You know?
But it was like, it was difficult unless there was a magazine and again, we're in 6th grade. So you don't have a job yet. You don't have a means of getting around without your parents. And
unless it was on the box, I didn't know it.
Exactly. And it wasn't like you could find out information easily like a child can today. So you're right. I didn't know about it either. But like when you come late on a TV series and you get to watch the whole thing back to back.
It's the greatest thing ever.
Listening to 36 Chambers in 96 and then immediately having Forever release in 97 was just like that. Because we came late to 36 Chambers.
The best part about that was, for me, is I heard Wu-Tang Forever first, which was an incredible album. In my opinion, the second greatest double album of all time. I think it goes Life After Death, Wu-Tang Forever, All Eyes on Me. All right, are the three.
That's a good thing to even list out. The greatest double CDs.
Yeah, I think
Blueprint 2, dog, is before All Eyes on Me.
So,
come on, cuz. Don't do that to yourself. Don't disrespect yourself like that.
So they're synonymous, right? So we talk like Life After Death. All right, there's maybe 2 skips. I don't know if there's 2. There might be 2.
I have no skips on Life After Death. Don't tarnish the man's name like that. His March 9th is coming up. Don't do that to him.
So, but what I mean about listening to Wu-Tang Forever, right? And I didn't know this till I heard 36 Chambers, but when that came out, that was the first time Wu-Tang was kind of commercialized, like it was like pop, so to speak. Yeah, they weren't pop, but they were mainstream.
Yeah, okay? Ghostface was literally hiding his face because he was running from the law.
Yes.
And when Triumph came out, that video was so amazing. It was much more heavily marketed. It was much more global, for sure.
Yes, exactly. So after hearing that album, which was incredible, but they also realized that they wanted to make money at this point in the second album, that they had to be a little bit more radio friendly, right? So after listening to the whole Wu-Tang Forever album and then going back to 36 Chambers and hearing how raw and insane that album was, I don't know that I listened to Wu-Tang Forever for like a year.
Yeah. And I mean, well, what was really radio? I guess Triumph was, but what was really radio friendly on Forever?
I guess radio friendly is
more polished and less raw. I'll give that to you.
I guess that's more important
100%,
where we're going.
100%.
Right? It was, I mean,
more sophisticated.
Right? Like, 36 Chambers was recorded in a studio, but it was pretty much just RZA by himself.
Yeah, and you can hear how cheap the equipment is on the instrumentation. And MTV, I think it was MTV released the documentary, or maybe it was just somebody with a camera following them around, but Wu-Tang lived in a house all together. They call it the Wu Mansion, but Wu-Tang lived in a house all together while they were recording Forever.
Now, here's what's crazy. Wasn't it in Jersey? It wasn't even in Staten Island. Wasn't it in New York? Wasn't it in Jersey somewhere?
Yeah, I don't know where it was. Nah, I want to say it was like Miami, or it was, because Raekwon had flowers and plants all over his room, and he was like, I got this from this broad I'm messing with. He's like, you got to have flowers and plants all over the place. It brings life to the room. And they were somewhere warm, but they have like a big pool table in like the living room. And they said like they lived together during the making and recording of Forever intentionally. And you can tell the difference. You can tell like 36 Chambers was a hodgepodge of raw talent cobbled together on like almost like a mixtape. And then Forever, they were living together, eating together, writing together, recording together in a much more professional studio. You're right. There's a world of difference. If you didn't know any better, you could almost say they were a different group.
So now we actually got a little bit of ahead of ourselves, but you can always like shift this to a later point in there.
Why did we get ahead of ourselves?
Because we went from now, you'll say, all right, so let's get back to where, RZA gets let go from Tommy Boy. Okay. So now they all come together. All right. There's RZA and 8 other members. All right. So now you got Jizza, you got RZA, you got ODB, right? You got Raekwon, you got Inspector Deck, right? You got ODB.
You said that already. Hold on. There's a song, and I say it from the song. The RZA, the Jizza, Old Dirty Bastard, Inspector Deck, Raekwon the Chef, You God, Ghostface Killah, Master Killer, and Method Man. Those are the original 9. Capadonna is honorary mention at number 10.
He comes in later.
He came later.
Capadonna. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So now they're basically recording demos at this point, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Now you have RZA's brother, half brother, step brother. All right. He becomes their de facto manager. He decides, he gets out of the drug game and he decides, I want to be on the up and up. And, he's the one who starts being involved on the business side.
Yeah.
All right. So they start shopping their music and they end up with Loud, which
Steve Rifkin. Yeah.
Which this is a guy who took a huge, huge chance with them.
And he was white, dog. Let's call it a spade.
He was, hold on, we're going to say it again. And when I say this, it's nothing but respect. Jewish.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like
they know what they're doing.
They know what they're doing. They're great people. They're great business people. They just know what they're doing. If this little
bald-headed white Jew doesn't give these 9 weird kids from Staten Island a chance, we're not losing entire 4 decades of phenomenal music and culture.
Correct. And so they signed with Loud. All right. But let's talk about what was the most genius thing RZA did. Okay. So here's what's unbelievable, though. When we talk about this, it was a win-win for him. All right. Because what he did was he made every single person sign with Wu-Tang Productions first. They were all signed under Wu-Tang Productions. All right. So what he did, what was incredible is they all signed with Wu-Tang Productions. Okay. And RZA was smart enough to realize that they're all unbelievable enough that they can have solo careers as well. And he made sure it was going to be a win-win for both parties. Right. So no matter what, they could sign with whatever label they wanted to independently.
As an individual.
But Wu-Tang Productions still got a piece of that contract.
And it wasn't as if no one else was allowed to offer or produce a record for their individual careers. But if you're my cousin or if you're my boy and we just came off the success of 36 Chambers and now you give me or you guide me through the process of like, yo, dog, together we're with Loud, but as an individual, I'm going to go with this one. You're going to go with this one. You're going to go with this one. But he still made all the beats.
Correct. And then think about this. So 36 Chambers comes out, which I'm not going to pretend to know what it debuted at or what it ended up finishing at in the chart. Got to imagine it was in the top 20, right? Let's take a look. What do you think?
None of that matters to me. I feel like
But for what I'm going to say, it does. So you had ODB who signed with Elektra, right? He was with Elektra. ODB.
Hold on. I think it says it on the albums. Hold on one second. Let me look up.
I'm pretty sure ODB's Elektra. Method Man was Def Jam.
It says it on the thing. Yeah, Elektra. Old Dirty Bastard was Elektra.
Okay, so ODB's Elektra, and then you have Method Man who is signed with Def Jam. All right, Jizza. Who did he sign with?
I don't know who Liquid Swords is under. Let me check. Hold on. Liquid Swords is with Geffen Records.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now you have 36 Chambers that's out, especially the New York area. The New York hip-hop scene's going insane for this album. All right. So let's say the Mid-Atlantic area, it's starting to trickle into the whole U.S. hip-hop scene. All right. Yeah. Let's say it's a top 20 album in the hip-hop charts. It had to be. I mean, I don't know what it was, but it had to be. Now, you have ODB's debut album, you have Method Man's debut album, and you have Jizza's debut album, right? So you have Liquid Swords, you have what, Tical, and then I forget what was ODB's.
Return to the 36 Chambers was Dirty's first album.
These 3 albums competed against each other.
Hold on. Only built for Cuban Linx and Ironman.
So Cuban Linx is
Ironman was
Raekwon?
97.
Is that Raekwon, Cuban Linx?
Only bill for Cuban Linx is Raekwon. That's 95. Yeah. Ironman was 96.
That's what I mean, though. They weren't competing against each other. EB, Method Man, and I believe GZA, I believe their albums came out in 94. I'm almost positive. They came out the same year.
No, Liquid Swords was November 95. They all came out in 95. They're still competing against each other.
Oh, it was 95. Other. Okay, they
all
came
out in 95. 2 years later. Yeah.
Okay. What individual
Tical was 94. That's what you were thinking of. Tical is 94.
was the first album, and that was always going to be. It was always going to be the first solo.
He was the only guy that had a solo record on 36 Chambers.
Correct.
Hold on. And Dirty was 95, March of 95. He's the only member to have a solo record on 36 Chambers, and then they immediately followed that up with the first solo artist was Tical, was Method Man.
Correct. Right? Bring the Pain. Or was it, what was the first single off that? I guess it would be Method Man, because Method Man, well, actually, no.
Method
Man
was on 36 Chambers.
But it was also on Tical, I believe, but it wasn't a single.
Yeah, but it was like a remix, or he had it at the bottom, like as a bonus track.
Bring the Pain was the first single off that album.
I feel like Bring the Pain was the first, but All I Need with Mary J was the much more popular of the two.
Well, that was, you know what? That was probably the first crossover. Right?
Oh, 100%.
So I'm sure I don't know if Rakim or Eric B, like Eric Sermon, like I don't know if any of them friggin'.
I don't think, they may have had women speak on records or do choruses, but it didn't feel and seem as grandiose as when Mary J. Blige got on All Eyes on Me.
You know what it really was?
All I Need Is You.
And I bet you'll agree to this. It was the first hip-hop duet.
94?
Hip-hop duet, right?
I don't know about that, but
between a man and a woman.
Think about like MC Light, Queen Latifah back in the day. They had to do records with like Public Enemy and all.
No, but it was a duet. Like, there was a story to the song. It went back and forth between the man and the woman. Is what I'm saying.
Yeah, but you didn't really get a sense for that until the video dropped. Maybe you're right. It was certainly a duet. I don't know if it was the first one or not, but it was. I would argue that it was the first globally successful duet. 100%.
Correct.
In hip hop.
Now, was it also one of the first times there was a crossover label wise? Mary J was with Uptown.
Yeah, because she did Real Love with Biggie.
So if you remember,
wait, that was before
Puffy discovered Mary J and Jodeci, but they were both with Uptown.
Hold on, Real Love might have been the first duet with her and Biggie.
Real Love. That one?
Look up in the sky, it's a bird, it's a plane. Nope, it's Mary J. Ain't a damn thing changed. Kicking new flavor with the Teflon Don.
That's probably, well, I don't
know.
Biggie
was on the remix.
What year is that?
I'm looking it up. What's the 411? Was 92. So yeah, Biggie, but still, it was Mary J. Blige. I mean, we're not far off. But I don't think Real Love was as popular as All I...
No, I don't think so either. All I Need, it won... Didn't it win a Grammy?
I don't know about that. But All I Need was... And then You're All That I Got Is You, when Ghostface...
Well, Ghostface, that was just her singing the hook.
But I'm saying, those two records, think about how different they are from what you heard on 36 Chambers and what you heard on Triumph. Now,
so,
how gutsy is it to go in that complete opposite direction?
All That I Got Is You is, I think, the first time I listened to a song and actually thought about what it was like to grow up in the inner city.
Yeah.
And thankfully, I did not grow up in the same situation as Ghostface. It was nothing like that. But I mean, not for nothing. It was a lot of us in a row home growing up, Irish Catholic family, one bed.
Yeah,
and it was, we weren't rich by any stretch of the
bunk beds. Yeah, 100%. But it was not 6 of us in a 3-bedroom apartment, roaches everywhere, cousins and aunts were there. It wasn't like that.
But here's the thing. And I'm not going to, but we all knew people and we didn't even think about it at the time. We didn't give a shit. We did know people who were in that situation.
Correct. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And now that you're older, you're like, you know what? Thank God we had those types of friendships with that types of people that I really didn't care where you came from.
Yeah, right? I remember there was a corner store in walking distance from my house called Pat's, and I could remember going down there, and they had a plastic like safe, which is like a little lock on it with a bunch of index cards in it, and those index cards were everybody's like tab.
Yeah,
and I don't know if my mom and dad had a tab. Maybe they did, but this one memory I have, it wasn't our tab. But I remember like there was like 1 or 2 arcade games in the corner, and you would go grab a pizza pretzel you'd fuck around on the arcade, and then you
Oh,
would,
on Buis.
yeah, you would head back right
Yeah.
across from Bargos. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you would head back home. But I remember vividly, like, people would come in and be like, yo, I need milk and bread, put it on my tab. The guy would hand them the milk and bread, whip out the index card with his mother or father's name on it, write down what he owed them. And then when they came back and made good on the bill, he would just scratch it out with a pen, dog. It was so bananas to me.
Because that's the way it was. That's the way it was growing up. I mean, you have tabs at any store, and then you'd be like, hey, listen, just a heads up. You owe me X amount of dollars. This is what your credit line is. And
right.
And people actually trusted each other.
I mean, because you knew that unless you were going to get physical with somebody, you knew that you were only as good as like stroking them once, and then you could never go back to that store again. So unless you start visiting all the, poppy stores in the zip code, you have to do right by the guy who's giving you a break for sure.
What are you from? Fucking Kensington and Somerset poppy stores?
Well, no, now they're called poppy stores.
I mean, now they're corner stores.
Corner stores.
They were corner stores. We called them.
So let's talk about everybody's first album. So Tical was Method Man's first album, and the standout singles are All I Need and Bring the Pain.
I think there's more. I think Tical.
I actually didn't like that album, if I'm being honest.
Well, it wasn't his best work. I think the next one, was it Tical 2000?
Tical 2000 Judgment Day. That's the one with Trump on it. We were talking about that the other day.
Yes. Yeah. Tical 2000 is unbelievable. And that's when he started collaborating with Meth more, or not Meth, with Redman more.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was unbelievable.
Is one of my favorite songs of all time, let alone one of my favorite Wu-Tang songs. But that counts. 2000 was in 98. So that counts. We're talking about the 90s. Right?
Correct.
So we're talking about from 93 to 99.
Tical 2000 is his best album.
I agree with that statement. Yes, sir. I agree with that statement.
It's when I feel like he always had this great flow, right? It was just, he always had this style that was his own. I think that's why he was very successful from the beginning and one of the most well-known and most well-liked when they were Wu-Tang when they first came out, right? He was pretty much the star in Staten Island.
Yeah.
He was also, from what we know, one of the few who didn't live like the project street life, believe it or not.
Right.
Like Method Man actually lived a pretty normal life, was ridiculously, did really well in high school, went to school, played high school lacrosse.
And not for nothing, no disrespect, but you can tell because I think he's the most not successful, but and not in terms
grounded?
Of like,
is grounded the best word?
He's the most grounded. He's got his hands in the most stuff. In other words, like he's in movies, he's in TV, he's into comic books. He's been on Kevin Smith's show, Comic Book Men.
He's the most diversified entertainment.
Correct, diversified. That's what I was looking for. Yeah, the other guys are much more hood. I mean, it is what it is.
That's not. Just so everybody knows, that's not a slight. That's not putting them down. It's just Method Man is much less street, right? That's his upbringing is much less street than the other 8 members.
Yeah, they refer to him as house and field. He's much more in the house than the field. But so you had RZA's debut in '98 was Bobby Digital. Now I thought Bobby Digital was so amazing. There weren't a lot of great records on there. I think he's got Now I See Everything with Method Man, which is like a play on words. New York City. Now I See Everything. Mm-hmm. Domestic Violence was my favorite.
Between you and I'm not a huge RZA fan as an MC independently.
He's not good. He's not a good MC. Let's just call a spade a spade. He's not a very good rapper.
He's a musical genius.
Right.
Music-wise, he's a genius.
To have his first, like, yes, Ooh, We Love You, Rakim existed. And Gravediggers, I was a big fan of the Gravediggers' first 2 albums. So, but that was like horror rap, and that was like an acquired taste. But I was a fan of it, and I knew about it. So
it was a huge risk,
right? But if you can think about, we learned about the Wu. Let's call it '96, right? We started listening to the Wu U97. So now between '96 and '98, right? This short 2-year span as a child. You're flooded with 36 Chambers, Return to the 36 Chambers, Tical, Cuban Linx, Liquid Swords, Ironman.
Bobby Digital.
I'm looking at my list. So now everybody hears for the first time that RZA is finally releasing his own album, his own
What was
solo
Ghostface's
album.
first album?
Ironman.
Ironman, that's right.
Yeah. So of course, I mean, the cover was iconic, like that 80s action movie poster stuff, and the beats were great. I enjoyed a couple of records. It's not a good album. He's not a good rapper, but you flocked to the store to grab it because of everything that he had created from 93 till that day.
That's why he was a genius. Here's something I've been thinking about for the past 20 minutes, and it's been boggling my mind because you know more about hip hop than any person I know. We've just talked about how many albums, independent albums, and you said in your mind, You God is the second best MC.
No, Inspect the Deck.
Oh, Inspect the Deck.
Yeah. Now,
when did his album come out?
Uncontrolled Substance was his first album. It came out in 99. He had a couple good records on there, like Rec Room was a good record. Femme Fatale, which is like, I don't know if he samples or he just says it in the hook. He talks about Eartha Kitt. Femme Fatale and Rec Room were the only two standout records I could remember from Uncontrolled Substance. Inspect the Deck does not have the ability to put out a good album, in my opinion. I think, as a lyricist, I have an Above the Clouds t-shirt. I own an Above the Clouds Gangstar t-shirt. I think Inspect the Deck is fantastic. I think he is a really, really good MC, but he does not have the ability to make a good album at all. From Uncontrolled Substance all the way through whatever his last shit was, Ninth Chamber or whatever. But in terms of lyricism, bars, he's number 2, 100%. Okay. He's number 2. So I wrote down a couple standout records from
like the one thing I also want to talk about. I want to transition into, they really are the first group, whatever, any hip hop artist who you had RZA and Meth, excuse me. They transitioned into acting. Like RZA was in American Gangster, played a huge part in it.
Yes, he did, but so that's not the 90s, number one. Number two, he's much better at doing scores. You got a good point.
We have to end this. We can't even get into like Gravel Pit. We can't even get into that song because that's correct. Okay. All right, that makes sense.
So I wrote down what we can get into, but you're right though. I mean, these 9 men, they had the first iconic hip hop logo of all time and the most recognizable. That's number 1.
Were they the first clothing brand? Was Wu Wear the first hip hop clothing brand?
It might have been. And Wu Wear is a fantastic song from the High School High soundtrack. When that record came out, it was so amazing to me. Because like in high school, clothing is a big thing. You know what I'm saying? And
well, not for us. We went to Catholic school. That was the greatest thing about going to Catholic school. I throw on a shirt and tie every day and didn't have to worry about what I was wearing.
Well, and we went to an all-boy high school, but on nights and weekends, clothing was a big deal when you were a teenager.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So like
I've been a sneakerhead since age 8.
To hear one of your favorite groups of all time do an entire song about every popular clothing brand that existed, it was just amazing to me. Like that song, the cover, everything. Wu Wear is one of my favorite Wu-Tang songs of all time. But yes, the first iconic logo, the first group to set the precedent of together as a group, you're with this contract and individually you can have your own contracts. They were the first ones with a clothing line.
They were the only one too, right, Mass? Like, so let's be honest, right? So let's go.
I would have to imagine Bad Boy had clothing for their artists.
No. What I mean is
they didn't sell it in stores,
right? So let's say, and we're getting ahead of ourselves. This isn't 90s. All right, actually, this is 90s. Let's go to No Limit.
Wu-Wear was in the 90s. Yeah.
Let's go to No Limit. All right, and Cash Money, for example. All right, you had Big Timers. All right. Which was with Cash Money. Okay.
Yeah.
Big Timers was what? It was Manny
Baby
Fresh.
And Manny.
It was
Baby and Manny.
And Lil Wayne was all over their albums, right?
Yes,
but they were all signed. All of their records came out.
But they got that from Wu.
No.
The blueprint.
I understand that. What I'm saying is Lil Wayne's solo albums came out on Cash Money, right?
Correct.
Let's say Manny Fresh is, I don't think he released
Manny
a
Fresh
solo
was
album.
The RZA of No Limit.
Correct. So I really
think Cash Money, not No Limit.
I think that Wu was the only group that had this arrangement.
Correct. I would agree with that. Yeah. But this concept of like the Big Timers was a duo, but then they could filter out into a larger conglomerate. Or
correct, but no matter what, though, they weren't like big timers. Like Manny Fresh didn't go sign his solo deal with Elektra or Interscope, or he signed it with Cash Money. Like if he released a solo album, it was through Cash Money.
I forget Wayne Juvenile and the two other guys. They had a group of 4. I forget what they were called. They did like Bling Bling, those records.
Hold on,
the Hot Boys.
The Hot Boys.
The Hot Boys. But then they could come together with more, right? If you added Manny and Baby and BG and Turk, there was more.
Like everything was for that label. Now here's the difference.
That's right.
It was their label, right? Is that the difference? So Loud was their own label. They had their own executives, right? They had their own
Loud wasn't created or owned
team.
by
Correct.
any of
that
the
was the
Wu-Tang
difference.
members. So, but in terms of groundbreaking, being the first at something, they were the first ones to get on the computer. And what I mean by that is, I know your answer is probably no, because I don't think you analyzed the physical disc the same way that I did. I used to smell the booklet. The booklet of a CD had a certain odor to it. And
you see my face?
I would love the smell of the book. I would open up the book and literally sniff it. But the physical disc, so Forever was a double CD. I still remember my dad getting off work, new albums released on Tuesdays in stores.
And he caught you in the bathroom sniffing the album? Is that what happened?
No. Tuesday, when Forever dropped, whatever day it was in 97, I remember
this was before Sounds of Upper Darby, by the way, guys. We touched on this. We would get them on Friday.
I remember my dad driving me to the wall after work to go get the album. And we had a computer. We had Windows 95, right? On a computer.
I remember you were the first people I knew to have internet.
In the family room. And Wu-Tang Forever, Disc 1, was an enhanced CD-ROM. It had the songs on it, but it also had software that ran on your computer.
You know what I love about this? The fact that you just said CD-ROM. Nobody today who's under the age of 30 is going to understand the term, actually under 40 maybe. It's just a CD. Actually, Mass, there's people under the age of 20 who have no idea what a CD is.
Yeah, that's true. So Julia says, you're so old you used to watch the news on paper. So when you put the disc in your CD-ROM drive, it took, like 10 minutes to load up, and it was an interactive digital recreation of the Wu Mansion. This place I was telling you about that they recorded the album at. So this is like a digital...
This was the place they got together after they released 36 Chambers. So they actually started making some money and...
Correct. And then what you see on the software, on the computer, was a digital recreation of the Wu Mansion. And everybody had their own bedroom, which was a chamber. And when you went into the chamber, there was something in the room that you had to click on, and you would uncover a video from that person, whoever's bedroom it was. So this is what it looked like when you put the disc in.
This is what, 1990?
97.
Yo, check it out.
That's RZA.
Now this is Ghost Room.
Trust, you know what I mean? Cash a little knowledge in the
Raekwon's room.
Chamber. We didn't even know the name of the album.
So this
You Guys' room.
Ridiculously innovative.
Oh,
this was
that's
probably
what I'm saying.
the first time.
1,000%. And if you there's an image. So this was one of the chambers. This was a picture, like this was the Jizz's chamber, and there was a chessboard here, and you went over to the TV, and you had to click on the TV, and then that's when you would find his chamber. It was wild, and then it was like, oh, come and play. You see the G logo there? It was like, oh, come and play chess with the genius. So, oh wait, you don't see that. Hold on, I'm sorry. Let me switch to my other screen. This was the Jizz's chamber. So this was his room, and you would go into the Jizz's chamber and you would play chess with him, and you see the G logo there, and then you would have to click on this computer screen here, and then you would see his video, and then you would go out into the next room, and so on and so forth. It was so unbelievably crazy to me, but to be a computer head and to have a machine to run that on was like, it was unbelievable.
Well, it was also the first time, right? Like you went to get the disc, you went to get the CD, and you pick it up and you're like, what the hell is this? Like, I put this in my computer?
Exactly.
Yeah, it was very almost like, what the fuck? What kind of times are we living in that we went from, like, I remember when I got my first CD player. where I didn't have to friggin' use cassette tapes anymore, and got this little like portable radio that was on the bureau in my bedroom. I could put CDs in.
Yeah.
And I remember the way the sound was from the CD, right? Because you went from vinyl, which the sound was incredible, but for some reason you couldn't put a vinyl in your car. So cassette tapes came out, and that was genius from a business standpoint. But cassette tapes sounded like shit. They really did.
Yeah.
As far as quality. And then you realize that vinyl and CD is the greatest quality of music ever, right?
And with a disc, you had the ability to put artwork on the disc. And so like we could see, this is Wu-Ware, Loud Records, RCA BMG, 1997. This is disc 1, enhanced CD right here. So when I saw that, you're saying that you immediately knew when you saw enhanced CD, you immediately knew you could put that into the computer. And then that's what happened when you loaded it up. You walked through the digital recreation of the Wu Mansion, and you got these like hidden videos from each of the members. So let's just end with some of our favorite songs. Now, as I was listening to all the records today, like, trying to get in the zone, and I was writing down, like, I wanted to at least make sure everybody's first album came out before New Year's Eve 1999. This way we could talk about
Now,
it.
here's the questions. Yes, thank you for saying that. It has to be pre-99.
In the 90s. Yeah.
All right, so 90 to 99, which should be easy. Are independent albums.
They have to be, 100%. They have to be. I mean, they aren't on my list.
Because they do have the Wu-Tang lately, we talked about. So even though it's under Elektra, if you ever notice this, we never talked about this. So even though Method Man was Def Jam, right? You had Ghostface with Elektra. I'm sorry, you had ODB with Elektra. I think Ghostface was Geffen. GZA was Geffen. They were all different labels. I think some of them may have doubled up. I think there were one or two may have doubled up.
Yeah.
But as great as the Wu-Tang albums are, the collective ones, right? As far as how great 36 Chambers are and Wu-Tang Forever, I feel like there are some albums that have better songs on the solo records.
I agree with you that there are better songs on every solo album. I don't know if anybody besides Ghostface and Raekwon made a better album than the group.
So that's a really interesting point. Let's talk about that for a little bit. Okay, so
let's go through the list. So RZA, his only solo album
in the 90s
was Bobby Digital. Does not qualify whatsoever.
Not nearly as good as the two Wu-Tang albums.
GZA, Liquid Swords.
Is it
he had
really,
he had a lot of very good records. It's not a better album than either 36 or Forever.
Correct.
Old Dirty Bastard. To be honest with you, we all love Dirty Style, but Brooklyn Zoo and Shimmy Shimmy Y'all are the only good records on that album. Maybe Rawhide, maybe.
The problem is he was, and we can do a whole ODB episode.
He was way out in left field, cuz.
He was. And if he didn't have all those issues, right? And a lot of people say that his issues stem from not being signed with
He's in the
Def Jam.
DMX category in terms of uniqueness and demons.
Well, it's fun. So the one thing I did read was about the Hulu thing is that one of the true stories is the fact that he spiraled after he didn't get signed to Def Jam. And that was the one thing RZA kind of screwed up on. His dream was to be on Def Jam. And RZA basically told him that he's signing with.
Well, he was when he got out of jail, Dame Dash picked him up. He was with Rockefeller for a little bit. He had an album.
That's still, it's a subsidiary, but he's not with Def Jam.
Right.
Right? He's not with, at that point, I think when that's all going on, Leor Cohen is still with Def Jam.
Yeah.
He's not rapping with Leor every day. He's not talking to Leor. Like, Leor is just, Dame Dash is reporting to Def Jam. This is what's going on. He signed to Rockefeller. His dream, and he talked about this. I've seen interviews besides the Hulu series that he talks about, like, his dream from the time he started rapping was to be a Def Jam artist.
Yeah.
And it basically got taken from him.
Remember when he took MTV with him, the cameras, to go sign it
to cash the welfare check?
Was that craziest shit I've ever seen in my life, dog.
No, but here's the thing. Yes, he made money. I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, the guy didn't make a penny, but I don't think people realize that there's probably only a few select people in Wu-Tang who actually made real money.
Right. And that's what I'm saying.
RZA?
That's part of what makes Method Man stand out. Correct.
Correct. Now, did ODB deserve to go get a fucking welfare check? Absolutely not. He obviously could get a limo, but I'm going to say this. It was
He wasn't making RZA money.
No, he wasn't making RZA money, but it was genius. Did it insult people? It was kind of the precursor to what social media is today.
Yeah,
right.
1000%.
It's all about shock value, all about views. You didn't
Look
register
at this crazy
views, right?
motherfucker doing this crazy shit on film.
Everybody knew what it was and talked about it. It was the 24-hour news cycle, or I'm sorry, let's say week news cycle.
That was water cooler talk
today.
for a while, dog.
Correct. Where today we have the 24-hour news cycle. That was something you talked about for 7 days to 14 days.
Yeah, I still think about it from time to time because his
let's talk about where he was caught
is the cover of the disc, is the album cover.
Where was he caught, guys? Where was he caught?
What do you mean, where was he caught?
When he was on the run. When ODB was on the run from the feds.
I don't know.
The McDonald's in Gray's Ferry, South Philadelphia.
Yeah.
What was he doing in Philly? What was he? Was he outside the McDonald's in the parking lot going shimmy shimmy?
No, you know what? He did a couple records with State Property. I wonder if that coincided. So
well, you know what's funny? Thurston Siegel is not far from.
Right. Yeah, probably.
Yeah,
that was probably
sense.
that day. So Residues of Old Inspector Deck 99 Uncontrolled Substance. I don't even count it. Residues of Old Dirty Bears.
You really love that album that much, do you?
No, I'm saying I don't count it.
Okay.
I love him. I don't count the album. I don't even think the records on that album can even compete in this.
So, and I'm actually going to give you some respect here because first time ever in hip hop history between you and I'm just like, I can't believe he's saying this.
Who, me?
I can't. Yes. And I love that we can have these conversations.
Saying
I would never listen to an album of Inspector Deck.
Because of how great of a lyricist he is, I gave him the respect of listening from start to finish. Like, I have a Wu-Tang playlist. I put Femme Fatale and Rec Room in there. I give him credit, but Above the Clouds, Triumph. He has one of the best statements.
I
bomb atomically. Come on, dog. That's
correct. I don't disagree with you. What's funny is he got screwed on 36 Chambers. He was not on that album a ton. Like, but he really wasn't. But then when I agree, he was on Wu-Tang Forever a ton.
But I'm saying, no, Swinging Through Town Like Your Neighborhood Spider-Man, that was him.
No, I know. But if you think about it, as far as like the whole album,
yes,
he wasn't really
Same
like.
with Capadonna slipped in on. I didn't know who Capadonna was until Triumph came out, and I'm like, who the frig is this cat?
Well, nobody did.
Because in the video, he spun around on that chair, and I'm like, he's not one of the 9. Like, now they got 10. And you couldn't do research back then. Like, you couldn't go to the library and look up who was the 10th member of the Wu-Tang Clan.
Right. It wasn't like you're not doing work on Abraham Lincoln.
Exactly.
Like, let me go to the Philadelphia Free Library and go to the fucking the card catalog and look
I gotta
up
trace a
Capadonna.
picture of John Wilkes Booth from my
you're not
art project.
Could you imagine you're sitting there and you got fucking $4 laid out and you're like, yeah, it's the Killer Bees, homie.
What were we saying? He's got one of the best hip hop lines I've ever heard. Alive on Arrival. It took me so long to realize what that meant. I didn't immediately connect it as the opposite to Dead on Arrival. You always hear that like with police stuff or, like Law and Order, Dead on Arrival. But the mindset of like someone who had such a rough upbringing to brag about the fact that I'm alive on arrival, like whatever arrival means to you or in that context, like that was such an unbelievable sentence to me. And I didn't understand it for a long time. And then it took me even longer to appreciate it. But like Deck gets respect. He's a lyricist. But the album doesn't compete with this conversation we're having. So RZA, GZA, Old Dirty Bears, and Inspector Deck, Raekwon, Cuban Linx is up there. The Purple Tape might be one of the best hip hop albums of all time. It's art, you could argue. But like Wu Gambino's is one of my favorite records of all time. Incarcerated Scarfaces.
Yes, and there's
a lot of great records.
It all goes back to, as great of lyricists as they all were in these albums, it all goes back to the music, right? Even though it was different, it all goes back to RZA, right? He produced all these albums. It goes back to, it was always the same genre. And what I mean by that is
subgenre. Yeah.
Subgenre. Great point. the music always seemed the same,
identical,
even though it was different. If that makes sense, I know it
does
doesn't.
because
it was always in the kung fu style. Like even with the way the music was produced, you felt like you were kind of in a kung fu movie. Am I wrong?
No, another first. They were the first ones to really do skits. Cool, and man, what's up? Hey,
as far as being
what do you
a listed
hear?
track,
Wu-Tang again? Yeah, get it again.
And it was actually a listed track on the album. They were the first ones to do that, I believe.
Capadonna's debut album, The Pillage, it's 98. It counts. He was officially became a member during Triumph. Slang editorial. The way that album starts out. Well, now you always seem so brave before. Like to bring in the skits from the actual kung fu movies, that was a first too. Just to have skits like that. You know what I mean? Then you hear Biggie and Little Kim doing it in the back room.
And the reason I say that is, and again, I could be wrong. The people in the comments like to tell us when we're wrong about things. Sorry,
Not
guys.
About this.
Guess what, guys?
This is what you call a subject matter expert, because I challenge anybody to test me about the Wu.
The listeners one thing now, and this is a good thing for life. I've yet to meet a perfect person. If you're perfect, I want to meet you.
Yeah.
Right? Where was I going? Shit. Where was I going?
That it's all identical and they all sounded the same.
That they all sound the same. That's where RZA's genius came into play.
Right.
Right? Like everything was different, but it all came together. It all came together.
Think about the point you just made about Inspector Deck. Inspector Deck was an original member of the Wu-Tang Clan. He's still with them in 2026. They all released an album in summer of 25, which actually RJ Payne is on. We got to get back to that. But 2 or 3 records. Inspector Deck might be on 2 or 3 records of 36 Chambers. He might be on 7 or 8 double CD of Forever.
But that's actually not uncommon, by the way, when it comes to Wu.
That's my point.
They can't fit all 9 members on every song.
But to strengthen what you're saying, imagine if every solo record was branded as a Wu-Tang record. You would consider it normal because Method Man's missing from these 5 records, and Inspector Deck's missing from these 10 records, and Ghost and Raekwon go back and forth on these 2 records. Every song from Incarcerated Scarfaces, Liquid Swords, Tical, Ironman, Golden Arm, Pillage, Return to 36 Chambers, Bobby Digital. It's just a handful of the members on a record.
So that's my point I wanted to make, by the way, and you just reminded me of it. So even though they were on different labels, right? So they were on Loud collectively, okay, as Wu, and then we're on all these different labels as solo artists independently. Do you remember, even though it might have said, Elektra Records or Geffen Records, every single album still had the Wu.
It had the W. That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
We just saw
that was genius.
They had the Wu Wear logo on the Forever disc.
Now here's the question. What record label, because frankly, let's be honest,
Razor Sharp,
Def Jam,
it's Razor Sharp.
They didn't have an obligation to do that.
No.
Right? The solo artist.
I don't know. We don't know that it wasn't in the paperwork somewhere. Maybe they did.
Well, that's the other question. Was the solo artist, was RZA the one negotiating the contracts for the solo artist?
I don't think he was like forcing his hand. I don't think he was like a Gestapo, but I think he had guidance 100%. He gave guidance to everybody. It's like Scarface, who put this thing together. Like they didn't know. They did a soundtrack for the PlayStation game. One of my favorite Wu records is Rumble, which is also on You God's album. That came from the PlayStation.
So, dude, here's another thing to think about when it comes to the 90s, right? There were so many Wu-Tang artists who ended up being guests on iconic records in the 90s of other iconic artists. I mean, who can you think of? Like what 2 or 3 songs can you think of in the 90s, right?
I mean, without looking it up, I would say,
think about this. If it wasn't for the artists themselves, the artist who it was their song, who had a Wu member on the track,
right,
they were probably already very popular.
Non-Wu record featuring a Wu member.
But the fact that the Wu member was on this record probably made it that much better. Do you have 2 or 3?
I don't know if John Blaze is the 90s. I have to look that up. But Fat Joe, Don Cartagena, John Blaze, Raekwon is on that record, and Method Man is sampled on the hook, almost like in a DJ Premier fashion.
Now, is that popular? I know that song, but
1,000%. It's one of the best posse cuts in hip hop history.
Like, isn't there a song, and I'm embarrassed I don't remember, isn't there a song that a Wu member's on with Mobb Deep?
Yes, Raekwon and Ghostface and Nas, they have records with Mobb Deep. Method Man has a record with Mobb Deep. I don't remember the name of it, but Eye for an Eye, I believe Raekwon is on with Mobb Deep. That's a standout record because, like, they attribute Nas with being the Godfather. Jay-Z is more successful and has more money, but Nas is really, in a lot of people's eyes, Illmatic and the Barbecue record, where he says something about boxing with killing God or boxing with God or something. Nas is attributed as like the starter, the Godfather of all like the 90s hip hop era stuff. And so Eye for an Eye, Mobb Deep, and then the biggest one, I think the biggest Wu feature on a non-Wu record is the What with Biggie on Ready to Die.
Yeah, so the
That's
What is
iconic,
that's Method Man and Biggie.
Yeah.
Right? And that's incredible. So
That's
that's
iconic.
95, 94, 95.
Whenever Ready to Die came out, 95.
Ready to Die is 95.
Yeah, 95.
Right, because he was dead in 97.
Right. Yeah, that was on Ready to Die. That was on Biggie's. But to be, you know, because like there's an interview with DJ Clark Kent. He discovered Jay and Big and put them together. And he tried to get them together for Brooklyn's Finest. And what's his name? Dame Dash didn't want to give Puff any money. He didn't want Puff to benefit from anything Jay and him were a part of. So he refused it for a long time. But eventually Brooklyn's Finest was together. But there was just friction between those different crews back then, especially as Tupac was coming into the picture and the East Coast, West Coast stuff was going on. So it wasn't common that you would have a lot of features across cities, across coasts and stuff like that. So it was a little bit of a risk to let Bad Boy come in with the Wu. It's fantastic. Eye for an Eye, Mobb Deep. And then we have the What. I think the What is, I thought the What was the most iconic and the largest, but Old Dirty Bastard and Mariah go back like babies and pacifiers.
Cuz, can I tell you something?
Cuz?
Oh my God, I have an unbelievable story for this. So my freshman year in college, I had a radio show. I majored in communications, wanted to be in broadcasting, wanted to do this, wanted to be a radio DJ, basically.
Yeah.
All right. And every Saturday night, I had a Widener University radio show, and I would open it up with fantasy. Me and Mariah go back like babies and pacifiers.
Yeah.
Old dirt dog, no liar.
He introduced, that's how crazy he was. He introduced himself on the record. Now, to put them two together at all was bananas. Like, whoever did that is a genius.
Is it possible? What do you think ODB was saying to Mariah?
Oh my God.
During the recording sessions and during the video shoot.
When you
hold on
here,
I don't remember the video. Are they ever together in the video? Because I would guarantee.
Yeah, they're on the beach and shit. I'm pretty sure they are.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I would guarantee there's a clause. Mariah was like, either she had a great time with him. I mean, because he was. Let's be honest.
She needed security around. Cause
he was a pretty interesting cat, dude. She might have liked him.
Yeah. But there's no denying they made magic on that record.
Yeah, they did.
He introduced himself, ladies and gentlemen, the old dirty doggy. Saying like he's so he was so unorthodox.
So there we go. That's the biggest. That's the
biggest
crossover.
1,000%.
Fantasy is the largest.
I think it came. I think it did come.
Music.
But to your credit, I think it absolutely came after All I Need. But it's 1,000 times bigger.
Here's the best part. It happened in the 90s because when I recorded my show at Widener, it was 1999.
Yep.
So Fantasy was 98 or 99.
Yeah. But that's the biggest Wu feature. That's not a Wu record. And that is one of the biggest crossovers between hip hop and R&B of all time. 100%. It still hits and is still extremely popular to this day.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Thank you for joining us this week. The episode was all about Wu-Tang. We love it. We hope you guys loved it. It was a huge part of our life growing up. We're all about the 90s here on the 40 Years and 40 Beers podcast. Listen, Wu-Tang keeps coming out with album after album after album. Method Man's in
children,
every podcast and every movie that comes out, right? I mean, all of a sudden you're sitting there watching a series, watching a movie. You're like, is that meth?
Yeah.
It happens all the time.
What did he do in The Wire? Cheese?
Cheese. He was unbelievable.
Come on,
except that he got whacked out.
Hit him up.
He did, but he got whacked by Slim Charles, if you remember.
That wasn't the 90s. Was it?
He got no. That was it started in the 90s, so technically it started in 99.
But did Cheese premiere before
Cheese
Day
was
2000?
3. Now Cheese was probably 2002.
But that was the first. That was one of the first iconic TV roles by a Wu member.
No, Oz. He was in Oz, cuz.
Yeah,
1997.
Method
Man.
Yeah.
That was the first time I saw him. I was like, is that Method Man? Dude, he was unbelievable in Oz.
I remember Steve Buscemi directed that episode, and I remember Method Man saying they put the knife on a different spot under the table, so he had a fumble for it.
Yep. I remember him saying he was like, thankfully I ain't never been in the prison. I never been in the state.
Yeah, I remember. That's crazy. So, all right, I think this was a fantastic episode, cuz we
I agree. So if you guys love Wu-Tang as much as we love Wu-Tang, always remember Wu-Tang's for the children. Wu-Tang, ha!